Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hawks Latest, your number one source for news, updates, rumors, opinions, and you guessed it, the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. I'm your host, Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL, and today we are going to be covering several storylines that are just heating up over the recent days, and it all starts with the franchise's centerpiece, Trey Young. From his looming contract extension to some swirling trade rumors and the team's potential interest in some star players this offseason, none other than obviously Kevin Durant, and then there's been one guy that's recently caught my eye that I decided to certainly make this video on because it was something that was super interesting and I think the Hawks should explore it. So the Hawks do find themselves at a major crossroads, and in today's video we're going to break down all of these major storylines from Trey's extension to the reality behind some of these trade rumors that involve Trey, the KD sweepstakes and some recent updates that we've learned very recently, and a potential trade for the Sacramento Kings center Domantas Sabonis, and what this all really could mean for the Hawks' long-term direction as we progress into a pivotal offseason as we look to improve for the now and for the later. So without further ado, let's get into it and start with the big one, Trey Young. So exactly 1 month from today, on July 6th, Trey Young becomes eligible for a 4-year, $229 million contract extension with the Hawks after 7 seasons with the ball club. All indications are that both sides want to get something done. Trey wants to be here. The Hawks want Trey to be here and be that leader that he has shown he can be. He's expected to sign the extension, but the structure of the deal is what's really up in the air right now. And obviously, he could not sign the extension. That is also a possibility, but it's a little more unlikely. One option on the table that's obviously different from the 4-year $229 million would be a 3-year deal for slightly less money, which would give Young, I guess, the flexibility to reassess his situation in Atlanta a few years from now, depending on really how successful the team has been and whether, the vision laid out by ownership and the front office is really being fulfilled. That's something that we're just going to have to monitor, but it could be a more, viable option for Trey, as he's, not exactly sure. I mean, he wants to be here, but, if the Hawks don't make any progress and wins over the next year or two, he might want out. And then a 3-year contract would allow him to walk in free agency once that is finished, or be traded in the final year. It's important to remember that next summer, Trey has a player option worth up to $48 million for the 2026-2027 NBA season. If he doesn't sign a contract extension this summer, he could opt out and hit free agency in 2026. So that's part of what's kind of pushing this recent urgency on Trey's deal, and why as soon as it hits July 6th, the Hawks would want to get that deal done with Trey. And I'm sure they've already talked and already started negotiating. Atlanta cannot afford to let their franchise player enter that final year without some clarity on what's going to happen, whether he's staying or leaving. And obviously, we believe he's staying. However, anything could happen, but they want to have clarity on their franchise player. I mean, make no mistake, Trey Young wants to be in Atlanta. He's invested in the team's young core, and he's really evolved as a leader, as we've all seen over the past season or two. I mean, focusing on being the type of playmaker and tone setter every championship team needs. I mean, especially as we're seeing, guys like SGA and Tyrese Halliburton make the finals. I mean, the East is going to be wide open next season, and if Trey Young stays in this role and, all these core players continue to get better around him, the Hawks certainly could be there very soon. I mean, his chemistry with players like Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Zachary Risachet, and Onyeka Okongwu, it's something that he has openly embraced and been very, flexible about. It's not always easy for someone who is entering his prime to really be sticking with a young core and really willing to, be a part of that process, because we don't know how long it's going to take. He's made it clear that there's nothing he'd rather do than to bring Atlanta their first ever NBA title, and that belief is probably going to guide how he starts approaching these contract discussions in the offseason. I mean, it's a super important offseason for Atlanta, not just Trey specifically. So we're going to kind of monitor that as we progress. So, I mean, of course, anytime a team misses the playoffs for 2 straight seasons like the Atlanta Hawks have done, the trade rumors are inevitable. They're going to swirl. And then obviously Trey Young is going to be at the heat of that because he's the face of the franchise, and he represents the Hawks as a brand and as a whole. He's going to be in the center of that speculation always. And he is right now. And that's not surprising, but I'm here to say don't listen to it. Trey Young is not going to be traded this offseason. Expect to hear teams like the Orlando Magic or the Miami Heat get brought up frequently. I mean, the Magic specifically are young and talented and poised to take that leap if they are able to stay healthy next season, which is something that they haven't really had great luck with. But let's be clear. There is no chance Atlanta trades Trey Young to the Orlando Magic or the Miami Heat. or to any divisional rival for that matter. I mean, they're in Atlanta's division. They would have to play him 4 or 5 times a year. If they have any say, they're not going to trade Trey to a team that they have to see that many times. It's a division rival that we're competing with in the conference standings with. I mean, they're not going to move a player to like Trey Young to a team like that. That would have to be full on Trey's terms if he wanted to sign there in free agency. However, he's shown no signs of disengagement or wanting to leave the Hawks. He's really bought in with this core, as we have said. In fact, I mean, he is, been that vocal leader and in private and public about, mentoring these young guys and growing into that leadership role. That commitment paired with obviously the lack of a realistic return package means Trey Young is staying put. I mean, some of these teams might be able to put together a decent offer for Trey, but his value across the league is pretty low right now, and no team is going to give Atlanta what they really want for their franchise player. And so at that point, there's no reason to trade him or move on from him. Because he represents Atlanta as an organization, and he's done a great job at it. So, yes, I'm saying this right now, the noise will be there, but there's no substance behind it. Trey Young is going to stay in Atlanta this offseason. I wanted to put this in the video just kind of as a reassurance for those who love Trey in Atlanta and are going to continue to enjoy watching him play in Atlanta because he's not getting traded. So now let's move on to a very different kind of rumor. And something that we have known and we have, reported over the past several days. The Hawks are potentially going to be linked to future Hall of Famer, two-time NBA champion Kevin Durant this offseason. So according to ESPN Shamstarania, and there has been new developments, Durant is expected to have a robust market this offseason with 4 to 6 teams considered serious contenders. Now, the question is Atlanta one of those 4 to 6 teams? We were mentioned in a previous article, obviously not by Shams, but we are interested in Kevin Durant, and the ownership of Atlanta had already begun discussing potential Durant trades. And I mean, obviously, ownership got the DeJounte Murray trade done a couple seasons ago. So if they're interested, they might pull the trigger. It's unclear whether Atlanta is one of those 4 to 6 teams listed, but the Phoenix Suns have made it known that they will work with KD and his business partner Rich Kleiman, to find a home if a trade is what's needed, and it looks like it is what's needed. It looks like Phoenix is really focusing on getting KD out of there by the NBA draft, which is pretty soon. I mean, obviously we are 19 days away from the NBA draft, and so right after the finals concludes, you could see KD get moved, and the Hawks could be one of those teams, really in discussions. I mean, so far, obviously, Houston, San Antonio are the 2 names that are most closely tied to KD, obviously because of the assets they have and where they are right now as contenders. But some buzz around Atlanta has obviously been picking up, as we've known. And while a Durant trade would likely require significant capital, both in players and potentially a few picks, the idea is very interesting. Now, I did see a report recently that Durant would likely be a 1-year rental for someone who trades for him. So the question that I have for you guys is, would you be willing to part ways with Onyeka Okongwu, Terrence Mann, and whatever salary we need to include to get Kevin Durant? Would you be okay with getting him for 1 season just as a rental, letting Zachary Ricochet learn under him for a year and then take over as that starting 3? It's something really interesting to think about, and I don't know if Atlanta's going to do it because it would require a lot of matching up these salaries to get him, and so it would gut a good bit of Atlanta's depth for a 1-year rental. However, it's something interesting to think about. So, I mean, would the Hawks be willing to part with some of their young core to pair Durant with Trey Young and Jalen Johnson? I mean, we know that the asking price has gotten lower with Phoenix, so it's going to be something interesting to monitor. I mean, KD's desire is obviously to join a win-now team. If you pair that with Atlanta's current desire to make a leap in the East next season and really start competing with this young core, it could make for a surprising development if other suitors fall through, like the Rockets or the Spurs or maybe even the Thunder. So we're just going to have to play it by ear. Now I'm going to move on to something that's more opinionated, something that hasn't really been reported as the Hawks having interest in him, but probably a name you guys weren't really expecting, or this honestly is probably going to kind of result in a little bit of pushback from Hawks fans. I know I made a tweet about it before, and it didn't really get received too well. Domantas Sabonis. Now, the Sacramento Kings are reportedly looking to shake things up after a disappointing season, and that comes as no surprise as, the NBA is getting more defensively focused. And while Sabonis is coming off of a strong individual year, the team might be kind of tempted to shift towards a more defense-first identity. And that's something that has shown in several of all these Western Conference teams are super elite defensively, the ones that are really at the top, and they could make Sabonis available for that reason. And if they do make Sabonis available, in my opinion, the Hawks should be all over it. Now, here's why. I mean, Sabonis would be a perfect offensive fit alongside Jalen Johnson. I mean, he's one of the best rebounders in the league. He actually led the NBA last season with 14 a game at 6'10", while also averaging 19 points and 6 assists. He even shot 42% from three, making him a legitimate floor spacer in a modern-day NBA. Someone who would very much fit alongside Trey Young and Jalen Johnson and whoever else we have on the roster. I mean, Dyson Daniels. It's going to be something that would certainly be interesting to see and watch. It'd be fun basketball. I mean, there are obviously the defensive concerns, but pairing Sabonis with all of these young core guys would arguably give Atlanta the most balanced and skilled starting five in the Eastern Conference. I mean, it's that wide open. It's certainly, honestly, they'd probably be the best rebounding front court in the entire NBA with Jalen Johnson and Domantas Sabonis. I mean, financially, Sabonis is locked up for the next 3 seasons, making just over $40 million a year. I mean, that's not a good contract, but I mean, for a guy of Sabonis's caliber, I would think it'd be worth it. I mean, it's just a question of if Atlanta were to really believe that they could take that next step and want to go all in with their starting five of Trey Young, Dyson Daniels, Zach Langley, Jalen Johnson, and Domantas Sabonis. That's a great team. I mean, a potential trade package could include like Onyeka Okongwu, Terrence Mann, Georges Niang, and the 13th overall pick in this year's draft. And honestly, that's probably enough to get it done. I mean, I feel like that's a fair price for a player of Sabonis' caliber who would fit well with the team. And it still allows the Hawks to keep their top-end talent intact and then obviously improve through free agency. And with the 22nd overall pick, they could obviously draft a guy like Maxime Reynaud or Danny Wolf, just kind of a backup big man that could play well with the rest of the core. Or they could get him in free agency, like, a Steven Adams or an Al Horford. You never know. I mean, what does this all mean? I mean, the Hawks are at a major turning point. I mean, with Trey Young likely to commit to a new deal and the front office exploring some aggressive trade options, this could be a summer that redefines the future of the franchise, whether that includes swinging for a guy like Domantas Sabonis or joining the KD conversation as one of the 4 to 6 teams that is really, interested in him, or simply locking in the core that they already have. One thing is clear: Atlanta's front office is done sitting on the fence. I mean, we've been involved in all these rumors, and the offseason hasn't even technically started. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. We will be covering every major update throughout the offseason, from trades and draft picks to free agency and some internal developments. So thank you guys for watching. My name's Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL, and this has been Hawks Latest.